So with that, let's go ahead and let's flip towards once we start getting ready, spring training, getting guys ready for that, and you mentioned doing things as game like and having variability within practice and testing things helps them with that. So I'd love to just skip forward to the spring training side. So your swing work is done, and we can play some of the other videos that you sent, but how do we help players to flip that switch of now we're no longer focusing on our body, we're focusing on the guy who's trying to get us out, because not that it doesn't matter in the off season, but now the true test is the guy on the mound. So tell us a little bit about how we flip that script with guys during spring training, or whenever they're starting their seasons, maybe preseason mode.
Yeah, I would say in spring training it's a little delicate because all of a sudden it's game modes, and no matter how many swings you took in the off season, all of a sudden now there's another pitcher on the mound and you're in spring, and everything you worked on, is it working? Is it not working? A lot of times we have players that come to us and from wherever they were working in the offseason, and all of a sudden everything they worked on is not working. That's a tough. So we have that situation where we got to get the player back on track, and we need to slow it back down before he can speed up. And then we have players who are ready to go, and those guys are, man, they worked on the right things in the offseason. They're efficient. They're to the ball. Let's go, man. We can speed up with those guys. We can get them in game mode. We can challenge them. I love the Giants saying, hey, practice dirty, play clean. Love it. I'm a big believer of that. We want to slow down the game. We always tell hitters forever. I've heard this. Hey, you got to slow down the game. Well, how can we expect the hitter to slow it down when he practiced really slow and then the game is fast? The game needs to be slower than practice, in my opinion. So those are two different things. So if that player came in and he's a little messed up, we do need to slow it down for that player, and we got to get him back moving the right way. Once we get him back moving the right way, bam, we get him right back on that track.
No, really good. And that goes back to that trust piece too of, man, and balancing that, because they may have spent all of their entire offseason working on this one thing. And if we try and change it day one without giving them the opportunity to show it, I mean, I don't mean to, throw the Astros under the bus, but the JD Martinez rule, right? I mean, he spent all offseason trying to do that, and he goes out, and I think he went like over 16 with 12 Ks, and then they cut him, and I mean, it is what it is, and I don't think that you can fault that, but that's also maybe one of the exceptions to the rule with that. But yeah, having that feel a big deal. And okay, so with that, I've been really digging into the mental side, and a lot of this lends itself to it, and a lot of it is listening and trying to ask the right questions and really digging into players' why and how we can where they're at, what their goals are truly. All lends itself to that. But how do we help them with the mental side, because you're dealing with guys who literally everything is on the line. And so getting them to, understand the context of locking it in pitch by pitch. I don't know if you've got just like a set philosophy that you really like, that you try and train guys with in the off season and in the preseason as well. But I just love to hear you work through, with the mental side of things, because it's so much mental. I'd love to hear your thoughts behind, how you're helping guys with that.
Hitting is so much mental, more than mechanics, more than so many things. Here's the greatest understanding a hitter. First, you have to understand a hitter, not understand how the swing works, but understand the human emotions of a hitter. Ask any hitter, would they rather have 3 line drive outs right at somebody or 3 broken bat hits? I ask this question all the time. People who they understand the importance of line drive hits, and when they put an algorithm together, and when we talk about exit velocity and all this other stuff, it leads to, yes, we get that. But when I ask that question to players, every player takes the 3 broken bat hits. And that is one of the most important things we have to remember when we're talking about hitting and the mental part of hitting. You know, you get in the box and that pitcher's, they're nasty. They're absolutely nasty. So we need to believe in ourselves. First of all, you know, we have to, hey, I believe I can do this and understand I can do this in the box. And that comes from the relationship with the hitting coach and the coaches and the other players. It's tough to hit. And it's an understanding of remembering everything I just said about we would take those 3 broken bat hits over 3 line drives. And when we get a player to change, whether we're changing a way to hit, whether we're trying to adjust something differently, whether this pitcher has nasty stuff on the mound, well, it's all in that mental part of how we assess. So each pitch to pitch, how do we handle that? Do we have a system to step out, reassess ourselves, and then let's go compete again? So I don't know if that I kind of went off script and a little bit off, but you know, I just think that is the human factor before we start breaking down too many swings. Where's the player at? Understanding the importance of, is he in the right frame of mind? Because hits lead to more hits.
Sure.
3 line drives lead to 3 more line drive outs lead to, I need to change something, you know, and they don't need to change anything. They're doing great. Just like when a hitter's doing bad, he may be doing really, really good, you know? So we have to remember all these things, that it's very important to keep that hitter in a great frame of mind.
No doubt. I really like that. With that, I want to flip to some of these in-season videos that you sent. I'm assuming they're in-season because they are on a field, and so I mean, you know, you may have access to a field, but I think this would lend it more towards that side of training. So if you'll give me just a second here to share the PowerPoint again, we'll go with this top left video, or this video on the left here. That's a little bit squeezed down, but you're on your knees and you're throwing balls overhanded. So explain what this drill is.
So I don't have the video right now, but I'm guessing this is Blaze Alexander. I'm guessing there's a screen. Yep, it's there we go. So there's Blaze. So we have a screen. Blaze was over rotating a little bit, and then we talked about rolling over, right? Now, we gave him the opportunity to hit the ball up the middle the other way, no problem, free. And then we said, hey, I need you to hit line drives right over the screen. Not pop-ups, fly balls, but line drive right over that screen. Now, we coned it off, so we have 15, 20, 25. We know exactly where we're at. So we worked our way back there to around 25 on my knees, and I'm throwing the ball about 95. And he's just, as you can see, it's calm, it's controlled, his body's moving. You know, look, I always talk about being in the red zone. I don't need to be in with footballs on, you know, and they have the red zone channel. They flip to the game because, hey, once they're in the red zone, you can score. Same thing with hitting. If your swing's in the red zone, hey, you can have success. You don't need to be on the 1 yard line, be perfect. And this is kind of the drill we're doing right here. He's controlling himself. He's not over swinging. He's hitting line drives, hit a couple of those balls out that day. Just with that nice, easy, compact, you know, efficient path.
Cool. And what about this one on the right here?
Oh, yeah, these are always fun right here. Right here, you know, we do 2 different ways with this. So we'll have a rounds where we're like, hey, 3 fastball, 2 curveballs, 1 fastball, you know, 2 fastballs, 2 sliders, or whatever we're doing. But here we call it you, me. And we can do a lot of different things with you, me. The hitter doesn't know what's going to come, whether it's going to be the curveball, the slider, whatever we're working on that day, or the fastball from the pitcher. We always focus on the fastball unless there's a round we say, hey, we got a 2-0 count, and this guy likes to get back in the count with hanging curves. All right. So that group, and we group players together in batting practice, you know, the big power guys versus the line drive guys, slap guys. We do our best at grouping those guys. So a lot of times I like the you, me. I like bases loaded, 1 out, 9th inning. Bases loaded, 1 out. And the reason I like that is because we need to put the ball in play. You know, put the ball in play. We got a chance to score a run. You take strike 3, we're out of the game. He has no idea if it's going to be the fastball or the curve. So he has to be ready for the fastball, but still keep his hands back, be efficient, have balance enough to still be able to put the curveball in play. I really like that drill.
So for the audio listeners, again, you can find these videos on stickandball.tv on the Ahead of the Curve channel. But you're throwing BP, and you've got a guy that's behind you that's right in your release window. That's I think it's a junior hack attack that's throwing sliders.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to time it up, and it's either one or the other. So you're talking about before you throw it, it'll be you or me, but you're simulating the motion, and it's either coming out of your hand or coming out of the machine in the same window, with you throwing a fastball and the machine throwing a curveball. That's really good.
Yeah, I know. It's one of my favorite. When the hitters first do it, they're like, no way. And then they start doing it. They start hammering balls. They're like, man, I can do this. Okay.
And you said you use this for a 2-strike drill quite a bit?
Love it for 2-strike drill. But you can also use it for, hey, 2-0, we're sitting fastball. No matter what, never miss the fastball. If you end up taking the curveball, it's fine. Or we may do it where, hey, there's a guy that loves to get back in the count, throwing hanging curveballs. So, okay, we're sitting hanging curveballs. So let the fastball go. Sit the hanging curveball every time.
Cool. So you're developing an approach within the drill sets.
Yes.
Really good. I can't wait to dig into that with you. I've got one more video here for you. And this one, you've got, I think, two machine drill here. I'll play it. Go ahead.
Once again, we got these sequences. And I'm going to tell you, for especially low A ball players, rookie ball players, and those guys, they know what's coming. This is no secret here. We say, okay, we got a high spin rate, coming fastball. The next pitch is going to be a curveball. So we just alternate fastball, curveball, fastball. And let me tell you, when they have to go from one to the other, it's tough. For some, it all of a sudden high spin rate. Oh, curveball, they got to stay back. They get it, but it's something with pitch recognition, timing, all of that, adjustability, all of it comes into play, even though they know the pitch is coming. It's not a secret. They know what's coming.
So with that, do you have to fight a lot with them being in between on both?
Yes, that's exactly what happens. Once they get the slow curveball, they're late on the fastball. Once they get the fastball, they're struggling with either late or early because they're trying to sit back on the curveball early. And instead of saying, hey, I'm always going to be ready for the fastest pitch and ride out. That's when that forward move comes, right out. And, we, like you said, if we just put their legs spread out, put a board in between them, they'd hit both pitches with no problem.
Yeah, no doubt. So let me ask you this one. So if you were if I was the one that was struggling with these being in between on timing issues, how would you coach me through that? And I think most coaches would be able to say, hey, you're in between or whatever. Do you have any checkpoints or just different things that you like to say to really get them to understand what you're seeing with how they're feeling?
That's a really, really good question.
It's a hard question. I apologize.
It is. No, it's a great question because it came up every day this year, especially when players would first come up at the beginning of the season, or players first come up, and it's the first time they've had curveballs for strikes at fastballs 95, 96 miles an hour with good spin, and it would be tough for them because every player can hit it at this level, can hit a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, no problem when they know it's coming, But once the curveball or the changeup or an off-speed gets thrown for a strike, it's in the back of their mind. And we talk about that mental game. That's the mental game. Yep. That's the belief in yourself and understanding, hey, this is the first time you've seen it. It's all right. We're going to practice it. We're going to go. We have our open cage. And that's when we're going to do some body work, and we're going to work on that and getting our body in the position that it needs to be in, that it can organize and still hit pitches and understand and be able to not freak out when that happens in the game. And then we're going to have practice. We're going to refine our drills. We're going to have those drills you just saw. And then right before the game, I'll go dirty 30 and pitch in the cage and just change up sliders, curves, and balls, strikes, and swing decisions. And eventually, if we do that enough and you trust yourself and you're always ready for the fastest pitch. So I always hear people say, hey, be ready for the fastball. We've been ready for the fastball since our dad threw batting practice to us in the backyard. we don't actually have to think about being ready for the fastball. We just need to time up, and that starts in the dugout. It starts on deck. It starts the third hitter. It starts, when you're watching the game, you're timing up the pitcher, his fastest pitch. And that's when you're in your gathered load and then to your forward move, and you learn how to ride that out and have adjustability. And that is where the trust comes with the player, and it's hard. Some of those players, no matter what you talk to them, no matter what you tell them, they couldn't do it. It's just really hard, really, really, really hard. And that's when you put your arm around them and say, hey, we're just going to keep working on it. As long as you're willing to keep working, I'll be here with you.
Well, how much of that is fear of swing and miss? Because I think that kids, especially, the teenagers that we're all working with, have that element of, I don't want to be on pitching ninja swords section. But it does happen, especially whenever they're competing against guys that, they know them, they're from the area, or they follow them on Instagram, whatever. And so I think that's an element of it too, of, well, I don't want to swing and miss on a slider if I'm thinking fastball. So I'm going to try and sit both, which you chase two rabbits, you don't catch either. And so I think that that's a conversation that from a coaching standpoint that I've had to have too, of, if you're sitting fastball, like dead red fastball, and they throw a slider that is just filthy and you swing and miss over the top, you didn't see it, like, okay, that's okay. Like, pitching's hard or hitting's hard and pitchers are good, and that's going to happen. But then just getting them to approach that in a little bit of a different manner. And I don't know if that's helpful. Maybe for one or two players, maybe for all of them, I don't know. But I know that's a conversation that I've had to have over the last year or so.
No, without a doubt. The player needs to understand, hey, if you get fooled on a slider, that's okay. You haven't seen it. You haven't seen enough of them yet, at this level. It's just fine. But let's not miss the fastball when it comes. Let's hit the right fastball when it comes. And eventually we'll practice enough that you'll start seeing that slider. And if we're in a hit-to-take mode, like you just said, hey, I believe we control the zone with the hit-to-take mode,
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we do damage. Control the zone, hit to take to do damage, So if you're questioning yourself, it's going to be tough. You lose that little split millisecond, and guess what? We foul back that fastball now that we should have hit in play. That leads to us now chasing off speed or chasing fastballs up or whatever it does. It's usually the pitches we missed that we should have hit is the reason we got out.
Yep. There's no doubt about it. So how do you help players? Because you're in high A, you have teenagers, and so and even with guys, in double A or triple A or whatever, they may have relied on their ability without having to game plan, having an approach, and digging into that side of things. So I guess let's start with approach. How do you help a player to understand just how to have a good approach? We talk about that all the time, and I know it's cliche of have an approach. It all is dependent on, what the player's good at, what the pitcher's throwing, what the situation is, and all of these different things. But how do we help them along with that process of, self-discovery of what a good approach for them is?
That's another really, really good question, because, every level versus amateur level versus, pro level, we know everything about this pitcher. We put it out the night before. We know their whole rotations. We know their whole roster, everything. Then they go up on that day. They can, they get it the night before, but then on the day we have it. Hey, this is where he likes to throw his first pitch. This is where he likes to throw. We know everything about it. So if we know there's a guy that, your right-handed hitter and he's heavy first pitch fastball down and away, well, we probably shouldn't be looking ball 1-2 first pitch, or if that's your weakness, well then, hey, you're going to have to make him come over the plate. Or, hey, my approach today is I'm going to figure out how to make balls, 5 more ball 3, because I like ball 3. So maybe you get on the plate, maybe you get off the plate, or just different things about planning your day out and having an approach and believing in it and going up to the plate and sticking to it. And that's a tough thing for young hitters. Young hitters sometimes have an approach, and then as soon as they get in the box, they forget their approach. And how do we get them back on track? We have little keywords for that to get them back on track of what they do. And sometimes they take and get out of their approach on one swing, and we got to get them right back into that approach. So, that question is different for every single one of your hitters on your roster that you coach. And you need to let each hitter feel how much he needs to know. How much do you want to know about this pitcher? How much do you, not need to know? It's always important to know what his go-to pitch is, what his out pitch is, or, hey, this is how they approach you. He may be really good at doing one thing, but, against you, he's not going to do that because, you're strong on that. Your hitter's really strong there, but he's really weak on another thing. They keep pitching that way. So having an idea where they're, we're cutting off one side of the plate because the guy's not very good to that side of the plate or not, that's what all those things are extremely important. One thing is for hitters, we may say, hey, this guy is really good to his arm side. He struggles glove side. Well, he throws one ball out of 10 to his glove side for a strike. Man, that hitter's so mad at you because he's like, man, you said he can't throw his glove side. Well, that's going to happen. It's okay, but until they can do it consistently, let's not worry about that too much. So, again, it goes back to the mental side, in my opinion, when we talk about approach and that hitter. Hey, let's get him to believe in what he wants to do and know what he wants to do, because sometimes you can't force an approach on somebody. You got to let them believe in their approach.
No doubt. Well, I am out of in-season questions, but I'd love to hear any other things that we didn't cover that we should have covered, or any other things that come up during the season that you really think that you want to hit on, or you want to make sure that coaches that are listening talk about this, or keep this in mind. Is anything like that come to mind?
Yeah, I just want, especially parents and coaches, especially in the amateur world, hitting is really hard. And on the Twitter world, we can get fooled because we always show home runs. We show great swings, I always say the best hitters probably have more rollovers than they do home runs, right? But we don't show those, or the pop-ups or got jammed. We don't really show that. So their timing would be off. That maybe they're uphill, maybe they're off their backside, maybe they lose the ground, the force, and always be careful when some guys say, hey, that's what I teach, and see he's doing it on that swing. Well, that's that swing. The timing was right. These are big league hitters, and understand that hitting is really, really, really hard, and your hitter doesn't need to be perfect. They need to be efficient. They need to help the team figure out how to help the team win. At the end of the game, do we score more runs than the other team? Not did we have the best swing today?
Oh, for sure. So the last question that I want to leave our listeners with, besides that one, which would have been a great ending to the show as well, but I'd love to hear just, I'm going to call this the legacy question. It's kind of corny, but if you had to leave our coaches, there's young coaches that are listening, and there's one thing, either advice that you would give them, or a book to go read, or just different things in general. If you had one thing to tell one listener who's listening right now that you could leave a legacy telling them this, what would that be?
Well, in the book, I really enjoyed Old School, New School. And I just think that, there was Hall of Famers when coaches didn't know all they know today. And we have to remember that the game is the final proof of that player, not slow motion camera, and we make him perfect in the cage, and then he goes in the game, and now that perfect swing's dragging. It's not efficient. Maybe he's got to over-exaggerate in the cage, but it's not perfect. So someone might say, oh, he's doing this wrong, but that's what helps him in the game. So the game is the decision maker. So always remember that we have to perform in the game. That kid has to be mentally ready, physically ready, prepared, and confident. Keep him confident. Keep his mental right, because he's got to perform something that's really hard, hitting a baseball in today's day.